What's up, everybody? Coming at you in NFL Week 10 with every line, game prediction, score, over, under, you name it, we got it here for each game in NFL Week 10. Let's jump right into it. But before we do, I ask as always that you like the video if you're enjoying the content. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying it that much and you want to keep getting the NFL content in this video and others week in and week out. And let me know in the comment section who you're taking this week. Jumping into the Thursday night game here, you got division rivals with the Broncos after a pretty thrilling fourth quarter win against the Texans, sitting at 7-2, hosting the Raiders here, who after a bye week had a heartbreaking loss against the Jaguars, sitting at 2-6. Raiders surrendering 10 plus points here against the Broncos, but in a fairly low scoring game, I think, for spreads of 10 plus or more at 42.5 here. If you look at the Raiders, what they really had going for them, and really the only thing going for them on offense, are the rookie Ashton Jonte at running back, and then second-year player Brock Bowers at tight end. Bowers putting up 3 touchdowns himself in the performance. That's the key to this Raiders offense. And you see that having new life with him coming back from injury. For the Broncos, you didn't see much of anything until that fourth quarter, with Bo Nix getting it going with his legs and starting peppering the ball around to guys like Cortland Sutton at wide receiver and R.J. Harvey at running back. Albeit they were going up against a much tougher defense for the Texans, the top 5 unit in the league. Conversely, the Raiders putting together a bottom 3 defensive unit in the league, as indicative of the output from the Jaguars and teams coming before them. I thought the Broncos defense was going to be a lot better than it is coming in the season. Not that they haven't been good. I just thought they were going to be a number 1, number 2 unit, coming in at the number 8th best defensive unit according to PFF. It's still, again, much different than the Raiders, who are sniffing the bottom of the barrel there defensively. I think if the Broncos can slow down Brock Bowers, which is so much harder said than done, then they have a really good chance to cover this game. He's really the secret sauce that the Raiders have going. And if the Broncos can slow him down, then I think they have a really good chance to blow this game out of the water. I don't think they're going to. This coverage defense hasn't been playing up to its standards and really being carried on the backs of cornerbacks Riley Moss and Pat Surtain. I think their linebackers are going to have a really hard time covering Brock Bowers unless they get a guy like Talanoa Hufanga, who's a very versatile safety but doesn't really match up in terms of size with Bowers. I don't know how well that's going to go. I would suspect the Broncos offense to trounce this poorly rated and eyeball test poorly performing Raiders defense. But I think 10 points in a divisional game on a short week is too much for my liking. I like the Broncos to win this game, but not by 10 points. I think they'll clear it by 7. Broncos 23, Raiders 17. We got a game here of 2 teams I think of very similarly in my minds. Always run first team, solid offensive lines, and above average or close to average defenses. But this year, you see a ton of variability from the Falcons as they take on the Colts in Indianapolis. Colts getting the favorite by almost a touchdown nod here. It's really been hard to watch the Falcons this year as you don't know what team is going to show up. They started to come alive in that second half against the Patriots, but due to some kicking issues, I think that game is a little bit different outcome than what it could have been. And then the Colts, after committing 6 different turnovers against the Steelers, dropped their second loss of the year in Pittsburgh this week. I would expect to see the Colts to bounce back in this one, and really the 2 times the Colts have lost this season, they've gone up against above average defenses where Daniel Jones has struggled to keep the ball in his offense's hands. This Falcons defense, while playing above average and above expectations coming into this season, is not the poster child of forcing turnovers. I think you're going to see an attenuated effort here from the Colts again to get the run game going, especially with Jonathan Taylor, who is threatening to break the rushing touchdown record. against this Falcons run defense that's bottom 10 in the league. I think that's going to be the key recipe between Jonathan Taylor and just Daniel Jones not committing the turnovers that we've seen in those 2 losses. I think they'll be fine. For the Falcons, you're seeing some great play from Drake London, who's carried that game, that offense against the Patriots last week. Drake London wasn't available 2 weeks ago in that loss against the Dolphins. You see his impact right away in the field. But other than that, you're not seeing a ton of production from the Falcons offense, even with one of the best players in the NFL, and Bijan Robinson at running back. They're just so inconsistent. It's hard to look at the Falcons here and like the situation. I do think they're due for a bounce back win. I think that win was supposed to come against the Patriots, and their kicking unit let them down here. Looking at the Falcons in 3-5, things are getting pretty bleak for them, and they got a tough matchup against the Colts, who are one of the league's best at putting up points. Falcons have not been too hot on offense lately. They have the 5th fewest points for in the league. That's really tough to overcome against the Colts team that's putting up points at such a huge clip. I'm going to stick with the Colts here. I'm going to take them a cover here and a bounce back win at home after that loss against the Steelers. I do think you're going to see a lot of points this game, but I think it's more so from the Colts side. I like the Colts here. I think 31-23. The Panthers got a nice surprising win as double-digit underdogs against the Packers last week. Saints doing what the Saints have done, and that's been getting beat by 3 touchdowns or more most of this season against the Rams. Then a really tough matchup for them. The Panthers only put up 16 points, but were able to beat that Packers team, and a big part of their resurgence in the second half of the first half of this season has been Rico Dowdle being a really pleasant surprise for them on offense in the rushing game, propelling this Panthers team to being one of the better and more scary rushing units in football. Outside of that, there's not a ton to highlight from the Panthers, but just by virtue of holding the Packers to 13 points, their defense is certainly doing something right, although that came after a pretty tough outing against the Bills. I think the Saints team and the Saints offense is very benign, whether it's Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shaw, their quarterback. They're just really lacking production and output no matter who they play. You've seen a pretty low total here with 40 points. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring slog type of a game, as it's not like right now this Panthers offense is hitting on all cylinders. You're not seeing Ricky McMillan, T-Vac light it up like I think a lot of people thought he was going to do, being the second wide receiver drafted off the board in this year's NFL draft. I like this game to be a close one. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw a Saints upset here, just because you see so many divisional upsets nowadays, and especially for one-win teams that are getting desperate. You never know, but it's really hard with the way the Panthers are running the football. I'm going to take the Panthers here to win the game. I think the Saints are going to cover in a really ugly, low-scoring game, and I think you see the Panthers win 20-17. Bears back at home after a really exciting and one of the most wild games I had seen against the Bengals last week, where they got the win in the final seconds of the game. The Giants, despite some fourth quarter production, still lost by and did not cover against the 49ers there at home. They travel on the road here and taking on a Bears team that's favored by just over a field goal. In a total that's 48 points, which is a little bit higher than I would have suspected between these two teams. But this is really indicative of this Bears defense that let Joe Flacco torch them for over 500 yards last week, despite the Bengals losing. Bears had a great offensive rushing output, with the running team putting up over 250 yards on the ground. Caleb Williams adding another 280 yards in the air, ultimately putting up 40-plus burger against the Bengals. I don't think you're going to see actually that high of a scoring output this game. I think the Bears, play down to their competition a lot, and I don't think this Giants offense without Cam Scatterbo and Malik Neighbors has a ton going for them. The big bright spots is really Theo Johnson at tight end has been a huge lift for that offense. Without him, I'm not too sure what this Giants offense would look like. But that being said, I still like the Bears to win this game, really alluding to that lack of firepower for the Giants offensively. At least on the Bears on offense, I think you can continue to count on them to put up points with DJ Moore, who had a great game last week, Colston Loveland, the rookie tight end that saved them that game last week, Rome Odunze, that's been a favorite of Caleb this year, and even guys like Luther Burden at the rookie wide receiver to stretch the field. I just don't think you have that vertical ability for the Giants here. And as long as the Bears continue to, or if the Bears can commit to not getting burned in the secondary like they did all of the game against the Bengals, then I think they should be fine here. And what Vegas is predicting to be a higher scoring affair, I don't think it's going to be quite that high. I like the Bears to win and cover this game. I'm going to go Bears 26, Giants 21. Texans, I think the big question mark here before I even go any further is will they get their quarterback back in this game out of concussion protocol after C.J. Stroud took a nasty hit that knocked him out, I think, of the second quarter of that game against the Broncos. I think that's going to determine which way this game really goes, but I think this line, just being the Texans' favorite at home, is indicating that he's probably more likely to play than not, but something to keep an eye on before you commit to doing anything in this Texans game. I'm going to analyze this game with the assumption that C.J. Stroud is playing, and if he is, I'm going to take the Texans here against the Jaguars. I have been too impressed with the Jags after they lost that game to the Chiefs. I think their early season success was really propped up on the fact that their defense was forcing turnovers at an unbelievable clip. And now you see kind of their true colors against a team like the Raiders, where that game could have very well been a loss to them playing in Las Vegas. Playing another home game against a divisional opponent, the Texans that are 3-5. And I think with the defense they have, the Texans are a better team than 3-5, but their offense has started out really slow, but you're starting to see guys like Nico Collins really start to get their groove in this offensive passing game. Even Nick Chubb in the running game starting to improve a little bit. So despite the record for the Texans, I'm liking the steps that they've been taking these last few weeks, and I think their defense is much better than what the Jaguars boast. You can see just by the Texans' defense, I think, look no further than the game against the Broncos to see how stingy this unit is. And to convince you even more about how great this Texans defense is, no team has allowed less points through 8 games than this Texans unit. Love what they have going on. Love the pass rush. Love what D'Amico Ryans is doing over there. So I think the defense reigns supreme in this game. Again, with the assumption that C.J. Stroud is back, this offense has been clicking a little bit better with as the season goes on, again with C.J. Stroud. And I like the Texans to win the game. I think they should have won last week had C.J. Stroud played all 4 quarters. I think this game, as the total implies, it's going to be a low-scoring slog as well. And I like the Texans to win this game, and with 1.5 point spread, I'd like them to cover 2. It'd be pretty bold take to take the Texans to win and the Jags to cover this one. So Texans win and cover in a low-scoring game. I'm gonna go 19-16 Texans. Here, after the Bills, after a nice win at home against the Chiefs, to keep them within a game or a half game of the Patriots in that AFC East division, take on their AFC East opponents on the road with the Dolphins here, sitting at 2-7, and really, not too much going for them this year, despite the nice upset win against the Falcons a couple of weeks ago. I just think that the Bills here have to keep winning football games and playing their best football if they're going to want to try to take this spot for the division, with the Patriots already eclipsing their win total by a few games over last year. Dolphins only able to put up 6 points against the Ravens team on Thursday night. So they all are coming off a long week, but again, they're facing a really tough opponent, much like the Ravens that are playing for the division right now, and every game really does count. And they have an MVP caliber quarterback under center. I think you're going to see a very similar outcome for the Dolphins that you saw against the Ravens. I think it shouldn't be a look. It's got potential to be kind of a look-pass game for the Bills after they really focused on this Chiefs game. But if they come in here and continue to do their thing with James Cook and his offensive line, which I think is going to be the real difference, I think you might see a similar outcome to when the Bills played the Panthers, and you're going to see not a ton of Josh Allen, but a heavy dose of James Cook. I could smell a 200-yard performance here. I wouldn't be too surprised. I like that outcome to be very similar, again, to the Panthers, with the Bills putting up a boatload of points. Bills 33, Dolphins 17 here, as the over hits and the Bills cover and win handedly. Battle of the Purple Eaters here with the Ravens I just mentioned, coming off a long week and a big win against the Dolphins, taking on the Vikings, who had a big win of their own last week against the Lions. 3-point spread for the Ravens. Again, every game really does matter for them as Pittsburgh picks up a key win in that division, and the Ravens here, I'm trying to figure out their record, sitting at 3-5. And on the wrong side of 500 at this midpoint in the season. I think the Ravens got to keep winning these games, and I think they actually have a really good matchup here against the Vikings. I don't look at the box score for this 27-24 game for the Vikings as they won on the road, and nothing really impresses me. J.J. McCarthy only completed 14 of 25 passes, threw for 143 yards. Aaron Jones was the big spark plug there in the running game, breaking up a 31-yard run. But, Jordan Addison, 48 yards, Justin Jefferson, 47 yards. It's not like the Vikings really blew up the stat sheet anyway. What they did was they forced a couple timely turnovers for the Lions. They stopped the run game. They committed to stopping the run game. Montgomery and Gibbs only combining for 65 yards. And what they did was they blitzed all day and made Jared Goff have very little time to hit his receivers downfield. I don't think that game plan is going to work against the Ravens for a variety of reasons. Number one, I don't think you can just really scheme against the run game like the way you can against a running back heavy run game for the Lions. You have to be able to game plan to stop both Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the run game, and both those things on their own individually are nearly impossible to do. Together, I think truly is impossible. And then there is almost no quarterback better against the blitz than Lamar Jackson. Part of it is because his receivers are so good at creating space in short distances. Think Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, even Rashad Bateman. And also just his ability to extend the play with his legs to really neutralize a lot of these blitz that opposing defenses throw at him. Because of all those reasons, I'm on the Ravens. I think it's just a must-win game just about every time they step on the field now. And I like them to get another W here and win this game 28-23. This might be the ugliest game, definitely the ugliest game of the week. It might be of the season with the Jets and the Browns both off a bye here. Jets 1.5-point favorites at home. And it's really a really tough proposal here, and what do you think is going to happen in this game? The Jets seemingly can have nothing going for them on offense, and I think you can say very similar things about the Browns. The one difference here is the Browns have the best defense in the NFL with the scariest front seven. They've got Myles Garrett, who's a complete game wrecker, and they have the best run defense in the NFL too. What the Browns don't have is any legitimate weapon in the passing game, especially at the wide receiver position. They've got nothing going for them in that department, and their best outlet is Fannin Jr. at the tight end spot. When Quinshon Judkins can get going, he can be pretty scary, but he was bottled up most of last game against the Patriots. For the Jets, they do have Breece Hall, who's very versatile. Mason Taylor at tight end has been stepping up for them, and the Jets do get, I should say Garrett Wilson, pictured here, is beginning to practice again, and I would bet he trends towards playing this game. If he doesn't, this line might change, and I think what I'm taking this game is going to depend on Garrett Wilson's status. I think because of the lack of explosivity and big plays from the Browns, I'm actually leaning on siding with the Jets here, knowing that a guy like Breece Hall or a guy like Garrett Wilson is liable to make a big play, regardless if it's Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor at quarterback for the Jets. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring, disgusting-looking game, but it's going to all depend on the team to break one open. It's either going to be the Browns defense that really puts them in a great position or even creates points themselves, or one of those two aforementioned players in the Jets that can break it loose. It's tough for me to go against my core beliefs here in taking the team with the worst defense, especially with how great this Browns defense has been. But I'm going to take the Jets here with a little bit of a dual threat quarterback, regardless of who they start, and some big play optionality at either running back or wide receivers, something that I think the Browns lack right now. And so I'm going to take the Jets to win this game. Really low scoring, really ugly. I'll go with 16-13. Again, really poor game that I think the Jets squeeze out here. This game is the opposite, where this is one of the more exciting matchups of the week. Patriots sitting at 7-2, one of the best offenses right now under Drake May, taking on the Bucks at 6-2, and a really exciting offense under Baker Mayfield when their wide receivers are healthy. And it's a big if and a big when for this Buccaneers offense, as they've gotten guys like Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and rookie Emeka Egbuka, who have all faced injuries along with Bucky Irving. I think a lot of those aforementioned names for the Buccaneers are going to be back, with the exception of, I think, Mike Evans, which even without that, those three guys alone make this offense pretty intimidating. And that's why the Bucs were 2.5-point favorites at home, coming off their bye week after their loss against the Lions. The Patriots are going to probably without wide receiver Booty, who had been hurt after the first half of this game, but you're still seeing some production from guys like Diggs, Pop Douglas having a great performance for the Patriots. But what I can't look past still is the inefficiency in the Patriots running game, regardless of who's in the backfield. Jennings was a nice pickup after Stevenson got hurt, but this run game is still a crutch for this Patriots team. And that's just one thing I cannot overlook. For the Buccaneers, I think you're going to see them go back to their bread and butter, especially getting guys like Bucky Irving and Egbuka back. Baker Mayfield just being the more seasoned vet here, I trust him a little bit more. But this has all the makings to be a shootout and probably will come down to the last possession. Regardless, this Buccaneers team and Baker Mayfield is no stranger to fourth quarter, last minute comebacks. And I think that's why I'm putting my faith in the Buccaneers to win this game. This 2.5-point spread is absolutely perfect, because I could see this game being the Buccaneers win, but by 2 or 1 point, and how close is it going to be. I think the smart play here is probably taking the Patriots plus 2.5, because I think this game truly is a coin flip. But I'm going to take the veteran quarterback and Baker Mayfield and the team at home here in a high-scoring affair. If I could like any pick this game, it would be the over. I think you see a ton of points in this matchup with two teams that love to pass the football, running being more the secondary option for each of these teams, and two quarterbacks that you'll be seeing playing in January. I like, again, the Buccaneers to win this game 30-28. Seahawks, after a dominant win on Monday night, take on the Cardinals, who, last I checked, were dominating on... Sorry, the Seahawks were on Sunday night, and the Cardinals were dominating on Monday night, last I checked, and up 17 points as we speak right now in the heading to the fourth quarter. The story for the Seahawks this year has been Sam Darnold's brilliance, Jackson Smith and Jigba's dominance, and that defensive prowess, as we came to know under Mike Macdonald as defensive coordinator for the Ravens in his past life, and now the head coach of the Seahawks. I'm not letting this Cardinals offensive output fool me. Anyone and everyone has been able to do this against this Cowboys defense. And again, much like the Patriots, what I cannot overlook is the inefficiency in the run game for the Cardinals. You can't beat good teams like the Seahawks playing one-dimensional football. And even with Kyler Murray, who was a last-minute scratch in Monday night's game, will all but likely be playing, or all but inevitably be playing here on Sunday against the Seahawks. I don't think he's enough to mask that one-dimensional nature of this Cardinals offense. You're seeing a top 10 coverage unit for Seattle, and they're still getting guys healthier throughout the year. Most notably Devin Witherspoon, who's a top 5 pick at cornerback out of Illinois and one of the premier physical cornerbacks in this league, and dynamic, and really been able to put him all over the field as well as blitzing the quarterback. Getting him healthier and more integrated in this defense only makes this unit even scarier. 7 points seems to be a lot against a divisional opponent like the Cardinals, especially as you get Kyler Murray back and start to not know what to expect and have another additional wrinkle with him in the run game. You're starting to see Marvin Harrison Jr. really come into his own with this Cardinals offense, which makes it scary as well. But, you lose the running game for the Cardinals. I think I've been really unimpressed with the 1-2 punch in the running game for the Seahawks between Walker and Charbonnet, but they more than made up for the passing game here. I like the Seahawks to win, hard not to, with how well they've been playing, but I think the Cardinals keep this game close. I think the last time these two played, it was an incredibly close game too, if I recall, looking that up live here. I feel like it was a Thursday night game that came really down to the wire. Trying to find this thing because that might influence what I have here. But regardless, again, I like the Seahawks to win this game. And I think they do in a close one. They won the last time these guys played in a really tight game, and won. The Seahawks were honestly lucky to win on Thursday night, 23-20. I think you're going to see a pretty similar score here. I'll go keep it at 3 points. Seahawks 26, Cardinals 23. Another divisional matchup that was played on Thursday night, decided by 3 points. Last time these two played, it was Mac Jones and a gutsy overtime win against the Rams, winning by 3, and that was on the road. Now they're at home. Brock Purdy, I've been saying this, should be back this game. Ricky Pearsall should be back this game, and even then, the Niners find themselves as 3-point underdogs at home. And hard to question that too much with the way that this Rams team has been looking, especially with Puka Nacua back. Great offensive output against the Saints, but it's hard to really read too much into that. The 49ers have been a heavy dose of Christian McCaffrey in that win against the Giants, but they're going to be a lot more two-dimensional and less dependent on CMC if they're going to want to win this game against the Rams, who continue, to me, to look like one of the most complete teams all around in the NFL. I mentioned that the Texans were the best team in the league in points against. The Rams aren't too far behind them, having the second best point total defensively in the league. It's going to be, I would have to imagine they stay true to form there with some of the best young pass rushers in the league against a depleted offensive line. This 49ers defense is a lot different than the time that these two teams played, having lost Fred Warner and Nick Bosa since they played. And I really just, all it comes down to is I don't imagine Sean McVay dropping 2 games against his divisional rivals here in the regular season. A lot of reasons to like the Rams offensively, and really the 2 biggest ones, 3 if you want to count Matt Stafford and how great he's been, are just the 1-2 punch of Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua at the wide receiver position. With or without Ricky Pearsall, this 49ers passing attack could just not match what the Rams offense is doing. Now, the Niners were able to limit that last time they played. I don't think they're going to be able to do it again. I think the Rams win this game and cover against the 49ers team that had their number last time they played, but I think the Rams outlast this one. I think the under hits too. These two teams usually play each other really, really tough and are good at taking away each team's best option. So this 49.5 seems like a really high total to me, and I think this game is much closer to something like the Rams 24, Niners 21 in a push, actually. Lions fans won't be soon to forget this matchup in the 2024-2025 postseason. I think the Lions look to get revenge here as 8.5-point favorites on the road, coming off a loss against the Vikings, against the Commanders and the team that knocked them out of the playoffs last year as the number 1 seed in the NFC. They will not be facing Jaden Daniels this game as he suffered that nasty elbow injury in Sunday Night Football. Marcus Mariota to take the helm and under center for the Commanders here. Honestly, if it was Jaden Daniels, if it was Marcus Mariota, I'd be taking the Lions to just cream the Commanders this game. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the Lions didn't lose too many games in 2024. One of them was the Buccaneers, and I had a feeling that they would come and beat them out when they played. They did just that and won by multiple touchdowns. I think they do the same here, especially coming off that loss against the Vikings. It's crazy to say, both the Lions and the Bears are 5-3 right now. Packers are 5-2-1. This isn't a gimme division for the Lions just yet, and again, even without that, leave it to Dan Campbell to motivate his team to get ready to run through a brick wall, to beat the living crap out of the team that bounced them out of the playoffs last year. I think that against the backup quarterback for the Commanders is evidence enough of the Lions absolutely thumping the Commanders here, putting up a 40-burger, holding the Commanders to under 20, and winning this game handily. I'm going to go Lions 41, Commanders 17. Chargers, after a pretty shaky win against the Titans on the road, host the Steelers after a big win they had against the Colts, again forcing 6 turnovers here. Chargers find themselves at a 3-point favorite at home, implying this game is a true pick and game coin flip at a neutral site. Big loss for the Chargers, the second time this year with All-Pro left tackle Joe Alt going down with injury, which is just really starting to stack up for the Chargers' offensive line and running game without Omarion Hampton as well, their rookie first-round pick. This Chargers team, the way they have to win is continue to pepper the ball to their really strong supporting cast at wide receiver and tight end. I've named the guys off in just about every video and can do it again, but between Johnston, Allen, Gadsden, and McConkey, it's really hard to stop this passing attack. But being so one-dimensional without the run game really limits this Chargers team. And you saw it in a little bit of a scare, again, against the Titans last week. It's going to be really tough, again, with this offensive line woes going up against the Steelers D that really won with this defensive line in front seven, getting in the face of Daniel Jones, again, forcing 6 turnovers and using their world-class pass rush to upset timing. I think you see a lot of that from the Steelers again. Without guys like Derwin James for this Chargers defense, it's looking more and more grim as each week rolls on. But they still are putting a top 10 defensive unit out there, and credit to everyone in this Chargers organization for putting up a really stout unit. But Aaron Rodgers looked really good last week. Again, I think it was more so of the Steelers defense, but I'm actually gonna take the Steelers to win this game outright, as I think the Chargers, without that run game, without Joe Alt really to protect Herbert's blind side, I think you might see a very similar formula for the Steelers here to upset the Chargers as they did against the Colts, using their pass rush to force turnovers and give their offense short field positions to put up points. I like this being a low-scoring total. I like the Steelers to win this game outright. And unfortunately, a team I really like, the Chargers, to stumble to 6-4. I'm going to go Steelers 23, Chargers 21. And then the Monday night game, the Packers, after a really bizarre loss in 13-point output, find themselves as favorites hosting the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles, who are coming off a bye. What I really want to be keen to see in track this week is A.J. Brown, star receiver for the Eagles, who was out before the bye. You would think with 2 weeks rest, he's ready to go, but something to keep an eye on there. I think if he's playing this game, the Eagles win this one, actually. I think the Eagles have been trending in the right direction, and I think you're seeing a little bit more liveliness in the passing game. You're starting to see Saquon Barkley get going in the run game against the Giants in the week before the bye. I think this offense is starting to click and get its mojo back. I think also the defense is doing a little bit of the same under Vic Fangio with a lot of talent there. The Eagles, I swear, just traded for somebody. And, they got Jalen Phillips, who played under Vic Fangio under his regime when he was in Miami. Jalen Phillips now follows him via trade to Philadelphia, a former first-round pick and a really versatile talent and great at getting the quarterback. Adds another level of depth to this Eagles defense. I think you can put him on the field Sunday and he can make a big impact right away. That's a really underrated trade that I think is flying under most people's radar ahead of this deadline. I like the Eagles to get Saquon Barkley going again behind their offensive line. I like A.J. Brown to continue to see more passing volume in this offense. And I like the Eagles defense to continue to take a step up and show you why the Packers can struggle here at times under Jordan Love and, teams like the Panthers and the Browns unable the Packers' offense to put up much points. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into those losses, and maybe the Packers only play down to their opponents and they beat really good playoff teams. I don't know, but I don't. It's hard for me to pick them after that loss against the Panthers. But really what it is, I'm not fading the Packers, and I'm not trying not to overreact to that loss. But what I am doing is giving a lot of credence, and I think well-deserved, to Jalen Hurts, the passing offense that seems to be taking steps forward, Saquon Barkley and that offensive line that seem to be taking steps forward, and the Eagles defense that's doing the same. I think the Eagles are trending all in the right direction, and after a bye week and some rest and preparation for this Packers team, are primed to get a win here. I like the Eagles to win this game 27-24. And that is the video, my friends. I appreciate you guys sticking to the end here, and cannot wait to see you guys all in Week 11. Best of luck.